It started with a simple garage cleanout. The Whitaker family had just moved into an old Victorian home in Massachusetts. Among dusty trunks and broken furniture, they found it. An ornate mirror taller than a man, its surface cloudy, almost silver. It didn't show their reflections. It showed something else entirely. A street scene. Horses, carriages. People dressed for another century. They thought it was a trick of the light. They were wrong. They tried polishing it, nothing changed. Still no reflection, no matter where they stood. Only that strange, shifting sign. Different each time. Sometimes a battle. Sometimes a church congregation. Always the same town square. What disturbed them most was that it matched the square just outside their house. But the people, they weren't alive. They hadn't been. For over 100 years. The mirror wasn't reflecting. It was remembering. That night their youngest daughter Ellie screamed in her sleep. She said she saw a woman, in a black veil, standing inside the mirror watching her. The others brushed it off as a nightmare. But the next night it happened again. And this time they all heard footsteps. Soft pacing sounds. Coming from the garage. When they checked, no one was there. But the mirror's surface was still warm. The Whitakers began researching the property. The house had stood since 1841, and the square outside had once been the center of a bustling colonial town. But then a fire had swept through in 1892, killing dozens. Most records were lost. The town had rebuilt elsewhere, leaving the square. And this house, abandoned, until now. But why did the mirror show those moments? Again and again. Why only the past? Ellie drew her. The woman from her dreams. Long dress, black veil, empty eyes. She called her the Watcher. The drawing gave her mother chills. Because she recognized the outfit. It matched a photo she'd seen online. In a scanned obituary from 1890. The woman's name was Clara Moreland. And she had died. In that house. Staring into a mirror. They contacted a local historian. Mrs. Alcott, nearly 90. Who remembered stories her grandmother told. Yes, Clara Moreland had lived there. No, she wasn't just a widow. She was believed to be a medium, who claimed to see lives trapped in mirrors. People called her mad. She'd locked herself in the attic, speaking to echoes. When she died, they sealed the mirror behind a false wall. But now, it had been found. The mirror wasn't cursed. Not exactly. It was more like a window. Each time they looked, it showed a different memory. From the same square, same house, same faces. Some smiled, some screamed. One time, Ellie swore she saw herself, wearing clothes from another era, standing beside Clara Moreland. The deeper they looked, the more they forgot what was real. Late one night, Mr. Whitaker stayed up alone. He approached the mirror and heard a whisper. It wasn't English. It sounded old. Latin, maybe. The voice grew louder the closer he got, until he felt something pulling, like gravity, from the other side. He staggered back, and for just a second, he saw his own face. Aged, decaying, screaming. The days felt longer. The clocks ran wrong. Ellie said breakfast was served before anyone cooked. Mrs. Whitaker lost 2 hours one afternoon. Found herself standing in the square, with no memory of walking there. They checked the footage from the baby cam. It showed her walking backwards, toward the mirror. But the footage was from 2 days before. The mirror wasn't just watching. It was replaying. One morning, the mirror didn't show the past. It showed their kitchen. exactly as it was. At first, they thought it had turned normal, until Mr. Whitaker noticed. There were no people in the reflection. No one, even though they were standing right in front of it. And then, a figure appeared. Not in the kitchen, only in the mirror. It looked like Ellie, but Ellie was asleep. They ran to Ellie's room. She was still asleep, safe. But the girl in the mirror moved, turned, and stared. Her eyes were empty. The same dress Ellie had drawn days ago. Mrs. Whitaker screamed. The mirror shimmered and went black. No image, no reflection. Just silent. Then, a knock echoed from the inside. 3 soft taps. Like someone wanted out. They rushed back to Mrs. Alcott. She looked pale as ash when they described the girl. You opened it, she whispered. The mirror's not just a window, it's a door. She handed them old notes. Sketches of symbols, journal entries, and Clara's final words. Do not look too long, do not let it see you. She begged them to destroy it. But something in the family didn't want to let go. Mr. Whitaker began spending hours in front of it. Watching, studying, he started writing things in symbols they couldn't read. He stopped sleeping, said the mirror had shown him something incredible. How time folds. He spoke of events that hadn't happened yet, but later did. He laughed at random, cried at nothing, and once Ellie caught him whispering, You'll be safe, Clara, I promise this time. Things in the house began to change. Old soot marks appeared on the walls. Candles lit by themselves. One night they found muddy footprints, bare small leading from the mirror to Ellie's bed. She said she dreamed of fire, of screams, of being pulled back. Mrs. Whitaker tried to cover the mirror with a sheet. It burned straight through, without a flame. One evening they saw it. The town square in flames. Bodies running, collapsing. Smoke choked the air inside the garage. Even though nothing burned, the mirror glowed orange. And in its center, Clara appeared. She looked at them terrified, and mouthed a word. Run. The image vanished. And behind them, their smoke alarm screamed. The toaster had caught fire. They didn't plug it in. The mirror no longer stayed in one time. Now it flickered. 1 second, a wedding from 1850. The next, a funeral in 1922. Sometimes the square was empty. Sometimes crawling with shadows. Mr. Whitaker said time was breaking. Mrs. Whitaker took Ellie and left, only to return minutes later, confused. She had driven for an hour, but the car clock said 10 minutes. And her phone had a message from Clara. The message was audio, static, garbled, but one word clear as day. Help. No number, no sender. And the phone crashed right after. Mrs. Whitaker smashed it, terrified. But that night the mirror showed a new scene. A woman holding a baby hiding under the stairs. It was Mrs. Whitaker. The baby was Ellie, except the house around them was burning. They had never lived through a fire, never hid under stairs. But the mirror insisted. This had happened, or it would happen. Mr. Whitaker now called it the archive. Said it held every moment, every choice. And sometimes it laked. He drew diagrams on the walls, mapped out loops in chalk. He stopped calling Ellie his daughter, started calling her the anchor. Mrs. Whitaker cried herself to sleep. Ellie began speaking differently. Words too old for a child. She said things like, he'll come back through. And we sealed it once, but not right. One night she stood at the mirror, and placed her hand on the glass. It rippled. She whispered, "I remember now." When asked what she meant, she said, "I used to be Clara's daughter." Before the fire, a long crack appeared across the mirror. No one had touched it. It wasn't broken from the outside. It was spreading from within, and behind the crack, a dark hallway formed. It wasn't part of the house. Not now, not ever. Ellie smiled at it and said, "She remembers me too." Then the lights in the house all flickered and turned off at once. The hallway inside the mirror pulsed with dim, golden light. Ellie stepped closer, but Mrs. Whitaker grabbed her. "She's calling me," Ellie said softly. The hallway stretched deeper, showing glimpses of rooms that didn't exist. Mr. Whitaker whispered, "This wasn't a mirror. It was a prison." He reached toward the glass, and for the first time, his hand passed through. The hallway welcomed him in. He vanished. No scream, no trace, only a faint shimmer. Mrs. Whitaker screamed his name, pounded the glass. Nothing. She turned to Ellie, but Ellie looked calm. "He's not lost," she said. "He remembers now." Then the mirror shifted again and showed him inside an old parlor, wearing different clothes, writing in a journal. He looked up at the mirror, straight at them, and mouthed, "Don't follow." The next day, a knock came at the door. No one was there, only a small wooden box. Inside, a journal, faded ink, and the first page read, "Property of James Whitaker, 1891. It was Mr. Whitaker's handwriting, but aged different. Inside were sketches of the mirror, notes about Clara, and a warning: seal the crack before it chooses a new gate. Mrs. Whitaker read every page. He believed the mirror wasn't haunted. It was ancient, a device left behind to preserve moments. But over time it fed on memory, and once cracked it leaked. Seeking a host, Clara had sealed it once, but now it needed another anchor. Someone who belonged to two times. Someone like Ellie. Every night now they heard footsteps, always starting from the mirror, walking the halls, not running, just the pacing. Mrs. Whitaker tried to record them, but playback showed only static. And Ellie, she stopped calling them footsteps. She said it was Clara, waiting for the pattern to align. She began speaking in riddles, drawing clocks with no hands. The house grew colder. Time, it seemed, was folding again. One morning, Mrs. Whitaker woke to find Ellie gone. She searched everywhere, then saw the mirror. Inside it, 3 versions of Ellie stood in the hallway, each slightly older, each wearing a different dress. Only one turned to look at her. Only one mouthed, "This is the last time." Then they all vanished. And behind her, Ellie stood confused. "I was just in bed," she whispered. Mrs. Whitaker checked the time. 6:42 a.m. The same time she had woken up yesterday. And the day before. The calendar hadn't changed. They were stuck in a time loop. Each morning small things shifted. A new scratch on the mirror. A deeper crack. Ellie's drawings grew more detailed. She said she was remembering past loops. She said there were hundreds. And in most, the fire always won. The mirror showed Clara again. This time, she spoke. No sound came through, but her lips moved clearly. "Take my place in the fold." Mrs. Whitaker trembled. Was Clara offering to switch? To leave if Ellie took her role? The mirror flickered, and for a moment, Mrs. Whitaker saw herself, burned, crying, trapped behind the glass. It wasn't a warning. It was a future. Ellie walked to the mirror. She touched the crack. It pulsed and glowed blue. She looked at her mother. "If I go, the fold ends," she said calmly. Mrs. Whitaker wept. "You're just a child." Ellie shook her head. "I've lived many times already." Behind her, the mirror opened. A doorway of swirling shadows. She stepped forward, but just before entering, the mirror shattered. Glass flew everywhere. Time halted. Ellie stood frozen, 1 foot inside. Mrs. Whitaker pulled her back. Just as the hallway collapsed, the mirror shrieked, 1,000 voices screaming all at once. Then silence. Only fragments remained. The house shook, then went still. It was over, or so they thought, until they found a single shard, still showing the past. And in it, Mr. Whitaker smiled. The shard was barely palm-sized, but still shimmered like water. It showed the same town square, but this time, modern cars, people in raincoats. It was the present, except Mr. Whitaker was still there. Watching, he waved. Mrs. Whitaker dropped the shard, but it didn't break. It hummed softly, like it was breathing. Ellie said, "He's still inside, and the mirror's not done." Each night the shard glowed stronger. They wrapped it, locked it away, but it found its way back. Once Mrs. Whitaker woke, with it on her chest. Ellie said it was looking. The shard began showing newer scenes. People they didn't know. Accidents, deaths, moments yet to happen. They realized the mirror wasn't only showing the past. It had learned the future, and wanted to rewrite it. Mrs. Whitaker dreamed again. Clara stood over her, whispering, "The mirror breaks, but memory does not." When she woke, the mirror pieces were gone. All of them, except the shard. Ellie was gone, too. A note left behind. "I'm going back in to fix it." The shard pulsed, and this time, Mrs. Whitaker followed. She traced Ellie's steps into the garage, then down. A panel in the floor had shifted, revealing a stairwell, wooden, ancient. She descended slowly. The air was thick, heavy. At the bottom, a room, stone walls, dozens of broken mirrors, lined up like gravestones. In the center, a full-length one, untouched. It reflected nothing, until she stepped closer. In the mirror, she saw him. Not Mr. Whitaker, not Ellie, a man in robes, eyes black as coal. He stood in a library of time, shelves made of light. He looked at her and said, "You broke the gate, now you must replace it." No mouth moved. The voice was inside her mind. The mirror pulled her forward. Behind her, footsteps. Ellie, but not quite. She turned and froze. It was Ellie, but older, eyes wiser, a voice lower. "I tried," she said, "but time fights back." She held out the shard. "It's not just a piece. It's the seed." The mirrors behind her shimmered. Each one showed a version of the house, a version of them. In most, they were already gone. Only one path remained unwritten. Suddenly fire erupted behind the mirrors. They weren't glass, they were paper, burning realities. Mrs. Whitaker clutched Ellie's hand, but Ellie pulled free. "This is where I stay," she said. "You still have a tether." The room shook. Flames licked the walls. One mirror remained, untouched, cold, quiet. It showed the garage. "Present day." Ellie whispered, "Go and never look back." Mrs. Whitaker stepped through. Her ears rang. Air turned thin. Then she was back. The garage silent. No mirror. Only dust. The shard lay cold on the floor. She picked it up. It showed nothing now. Not past, not future, just her reflection. For the first time, she whispered, "Thank you, Ellie." But deep inside the glass, a flicker of fire still danced. The house was quiet. The clocks worked. Days passed. No footsteps. No whispers. Mrs. Whitaker buried the shard under the old oak tree. Life went on. She told no one. But each night, she dreamed of mirrors. Not broken, but watching. She knew the fold hadn't closed. Only paused. And one day, someone else would find another mirror and forget what not to see. Miles away, in a flea market outside Baltimore, a woman bought an antique mirror for $10. Cracked, but charming, she brought it home, set it in her hallway. The first night, her toddler pointed at it and asked, "Why's that man crying?" She saw nothing, but behind the glass, just faintly, the outline of Mr. Whitaker's face, pressed softly against the inside. Reports began surfacing online. Mirror anomalies. People seeing events they never lived. One woman claimed she watched her own birth. In the hallway mirror, a man filmed himself shaving. But the reflection didn't move. And always, in the corner of the frame, a figure stood barely visible. Same face, same eyes. It was Mr. Whitaker. Always watching, always waiting. An engineer in New Zealand. Captured unusual frequency spikes, all tied to mirror reflections. He played back the data as audio, and heard whispers, repeating the same phrase. The gate never closed. He posted his findings. The video went viral, then disappeared. His account was deleted, but someone saved the file. And deep in the waveform was a name, Clara Moreland. A scholar cross-referenced time anomalies with mirror sales from estate auctions. He found a pattern. Cities where fold echoes occurred always matched towns near Clara's bloodline. Each generation, one was chosen to hold the tether. Ellie was just the latest. But now, the tether was broken. The fold, free-floating, and the mirrors, now just open wounds. Places where time could leak. In rural Italy, a man calling himself the archivist claimed to own 72 broken mirrors. All haunted. Each one showed a different point in history. He said they whispered to him. He wasn't scared. He was listening. His followers believed he could bend time. They began searching for more. Digging up ruins. Buying antiques. Trying to find the core mirror. The one that started it all. A woman in Boston discovered letters in her attic, written by Clara Moreland. They weren't ink. They were etched into silver foil. One warned, "The mirror shows what it wants, not what was." Another read, "Only memory seals the gate, only love remembers the shape." But one line repeated across every letter. There is no reflection without loss. In a child's mirror in Kansas, parents reported a recurring figure. A woman in black, veil over her face. When questioned, the child said, "She's watching to see if I belong." The image never moved, but the reflection aged each night. Soon it matched the girl's face. Only older, only hollow. The watcher wasn't gone. She had learned to hide inside time. Back in Massachusetts, Mrs. Whitaker had one final dream. She stood in an empty mirror field. Hundreds of them, all shattered. Ellie stood in the center, glowing with golden light. You let me go, she said. But memory never does. Then Clara appeared. Smiling, she handed Mrs. Whitaker a mirror fragment. The very first. The one she had buried. It pulsed and opened again. The next morning, Mrs. Whitaker lost an hour. No memory, no warning. Security footage showed her speaking to someone invisible in the mirror. She nodded, then disappeared for exactly 61 minutes. When she returned, she held a journal, Clara's final diary, but the entries were blank. Until sunset. Then words appeared, written by her own hand. She was writing. From inside, the archivist found another mirror, buried beneath an abandoned hospital. Cracked but glowing, he placed it beside the others. Now 73. He smiled. Almost ready, he whispered. Each mirror showed a moment of pain. Loss, fire, and in one, Mr. Whitaker stared back. Still trapped, still smiling, but behind him now, Ellie, older, eyes glowing with memory. The tether had shifted. She was becoming the core. Across the world, mirrors flickered, tiny sinks in reflection. Seconds that didn't align. People blinked and saw themselves elsewhere. Every surface of glass began humming, not loud, but constant, a signal, a frequency. The fold wasn't breaking apart. It was connecting. Mrs. Whitaker felt it. Wherever she wasn't alone. Time was no longer linear. The mirrors had become one. At sunset, the diary inked itself, line by line, in Mrs. Whitaker's own handwriting. If you read this, I'm still between. He watches from the lattice of moments. She turned the page. More writing appeared. One shard holds the key, but only in fire. She knew what it meant. The mirror had to burn, but not just broken, erased from time. In a rare live stream, the archivist addressed his followers. The mirror doesn't want freedom, he said. It wants order, a clean loop, a final gate. He believed someone had triggered the collapse too early. It wasn't him. It was Clara. It was Ellie, a child, born between memory and moment. She wasn't the anchor anymore. She was the rewrite. Mrs. Whitaker stared into the shard. For days it showed nothing. Then suddenly, Ellie, but not standing, floating, surrounded by light. She whispered, I'm where the fold began, I remember before it cracked. Behind her, an ocean of mirrors extended forever. Each one showed a different Earth. Each one failing. Ellie held out her hand. Bring me back, she said. But not through glass. The diary gave instructions. A fire, a reflection, a name spoken backward. Mrs. Whitaker followed them. She built a pyre of glass shards. Each one hummed louder as the flames rose. She spoke Ellie's name. In reverse, the sky darkened. The fire changed color. Blue, then gold. Then silent. In the smoke, a shape stepped forward. Barefoot, shaking, Ellie returned. Ellie looked older, her eyes ancient. She hugged her mother, but whispered, I didn't come alone. From the smoke, two shadows lingered. One was Clara. The other was Mr. Whitaker, but not whole. He flickered, part memory, part body. Clara nodded once, then faded. She had passed the tether. But Mr. Whitaker remained, trapped between loops, and time was running out for him. Across the ocean, The archivist stared into mirror 41. It cracked, then 17, then all 73. Shattered in sync. But instead of breaking, they bled light. He fell to his knees. It's begun, he whispered. And in one last clear vision, he saw Ellie. Not a child, not a girl, but a figure of flame, standing inside time itself. The rewrite had started. Reality trembled. Clocks spun. Screens glitched. People across the world saw flashes. Events from other lives. One woman screamed in terror, watching herself drown, in a city she had never visited. A man saw a funeral. His own. Everyone felt it. A correction. History pushing back. Because time was no longer anchored. And without a gatekeeper. The past wanted everything back. Ellie led her mother to the field where the first mirror was made. Beneath the dirt, a disk of obsidian. The mirror core. Clara's journals said it predated even her. Not man-made, just found. It pulsed like a heart. Ellie said, "We end it here. No more doors." Mrs. Whitaker lit the final fire. The obsidian cracked, and the field fell silent. The sky shimmered. One last image appeared on every mirror, everywhere. Not a person, not a place, a choice, two paths. One led to erasure. A clean world, no memory. The other, to endless loop. Ellie whispered, "Most will choose to forget." Her mother asked, "And you?" Ellie touched the shard. "I choose to remember. Because someone has to warn them." The world calmed. Mirrors returned to normal. No flickers, no whispers, just reflections. But in a museum in Berlin, a forgotten crate arrived. Inside, a single black mirror. Unlabeled, unregistered. The guard touched it once, and never spoke again. What he saw remains unknown. But the glass, it pulsed faintly. The fold had closed, but memory, as always, had found a crack. They said he never blinked, just sat there staring into nothing. His eyes reflected movement, but the room behind him was still. Doctors found no trauma. Only one thing strange. His heartbeat followed a rhythm. 3 slow beats, pausing, then 3 again. Like footsteps, like someone pacing. A technician checked the black mirror's surface. There were fingerprints. On the inside. Ellie sat by the ash of the mirror core. She looked calm. She said she could still feel them. The other timelines, their echoes brushing past her thoughts. One version of her burned. One vanished. One never existed. But this one, this Ellie chose remembrance. She looked at her mother and whispered. There was never just one gate. Only one key. And she was it. In the final dream, Mrs. Whitaker met Clara once more. She stood in a mirrorless room. No reflections. No time. Clara smiled. "I waited long enough." She handed over a box. Old wooden sealed. Inside, ashes and a ring. Clara's memories. She said, "You carry what I couldn't. Now let go." And with a single step, she disappeared into the dark. Followers of the archivist found his home empty. Mirrors shattered, journals burned. Only one message remained. She became the archive, I became the question. No body, no blood, just a chair, facing a blank wall. Some say they still hear him. In old radio signals. In glitches, always repeating. Memory is the last truth. And then static. 1 month later, Mirrors began showing oddities. Not ghosts, not futures, but feelings, guilt, joy, loss, as if the mirrors now reflected what was buried. People cried in front of them. Some laughed. Some saw loved ones long gone, not as apparitions, but as memories restored. Ellie had rewritten the function. Not to haunt, but to heal. One morning Ellie was gone. No note, no sound, only a mirror shard on her bed. Mrs. Whitaker held it, and it warmed in her hand. Inside, just a glimpse, Ellie walking through sunlight. No fire, no folds, just peace. She smiled once, and faded, this time, not trapped, just moving forward. The shard dimmed, and for the first time, stayed quiet. Years passed. The story became myth. The house was sold, the garage repainted, but one mirror remained, untouched, sealed in a basement box. Mrs. Whitaker grew old, but never moved away. Every year on Ellie's birthday, she visited the oak tree, where the shard was buried, and though she never dug it up, she always felt warmth under her feet, as if someone still remembered. On her last night, Mrs. Whitaker dreamed of mirrors, billions of them, stretching into space. Each held a version of herself, some happy, some broken. One stood beside Ellie, smiling. She touched that one and woke up, not in bed, not in her world, but standing in the town square. Sunset, fireflies, and Ellie waiting. No more echoes, she said. Just now, after her death, a letter arrived at a university archive. Unmarked, inside, Clara's diary, Ellie's drawings, and a single line handwritten on linen. If memory is the mirror, then love is the light. They stored it, filed it, forgot it, but decades later, a young student opened the folder, and for a heartbeat, her reflection looked back and blinked first. Some say all the mirrors are quiet now. No shadows, no time slips. The fold, sealed, but mirrors don't die. They wait, and somewhere, in some hidden attic or dusty market, the first shard may pulse again. Not with fire, but with memory. And whoever finds it next will have to decide to forget, to remember, or to become the next reflection. In a forgotten wing of a war museum, a janitor dusted an old mirror. He paused. It looked newer than everything else. There was no tag, no file, but etched into its frame, barely visible, a name, Clara Moreland. That night, he dreamed of fires, and when he returned in the morning, the mirror was gone. Only soot remained, and 3 footprints, leading away. During a live news broadcast, a reflection flickered behind the anchor. People online caught it, frame by frame. Not the camera crew, not a glitch, a woman in black, watching. The footage was pulled, but re-uploaded everywhere. Commenters argued. CGI, ghost, one user wrote. She's checking timelines, making sure the fold holds. The post was flagged, then deleted, but not before. Millions saw her eyes. A genealogy AI glitched. It began linking users to an unknown ancestor. Clara Moreland. Thousands across continents. Different ages, different bloodlines, but one name, always repeating. The company denied it, called it a patterning error. But some began writing to each other, comparing dreams, drawings, mirror stories, and they all asked, Why does Clara keep returning? And why now? A university library in Oxford caught fire. Only one wing burned. Special collections. Inside it, Clara's journal, Ellie's sketches, Mrs. Whitaker's letters. Lost, or so they claimed. But one student found a page in her locker. She never saw who put it there. It read, "The mirror must burn in story too. Memory lives longer when told, not kept." In Romania, a child was born without a reflection. Doctors ran tests. No condition. Perfectly healthy. But mirrors showed nothing. Except once, on her third birthday, a shape appeared behind her. A flicker of flame. And then, her face, older, smiling, she pointed at the glass and whispered, "She's coming back for me. When it's safe." And the mirror, fogged over like breath. An expedition in Antarctica found an object beneath 2,000-year-old ice. Black polished smooth. The team called it the disk. It gave off no heat. But when filmed, reflections played across its surface. Not snow, not sky, moments, people long dead. When touched, one scientist saw her childhood bedroom, exactly as it was, and whispered, "This doesn't belong to Earth." And she was right. A software engineer found a string of binary embedded inside a mirror app update. It wasn't code. It was musical. He converted it to sound, then to light. The result, a hologram of a room no one recognized, until a historian identified it. The Moreland Parlor, 1889. The engineer deleted his program, but the update had already spread. Millions now had it. In their phones, a tourist snapped a photo in front of an antique shop in Kyoto. She saw nothing strange. But later, the image revealed a figure, faint transparent, a girl, barefoot, holding a mirror shard. Experts called it a glitch. Locals disagreed. They said mirrors remember who respects them. And sometimes, they wave back. The girl wasn't scary. She looked peaceful, as if guarding something. Just behind the glass, a podcast host found a handwritten letter in a second-hand bookstore. It was signed, Marion Whitaker. It began, "If this finds you, the fold has not forgotten." The host read it aloud on air. Listeners flooded her inbox, claiming shared dreams, mirror memories, voices. The episode was pulled, but not before one line echoed everywhere. The mirror didn't break. It passed through us. In a security camera loop, an analyst noticed something strange. A girl, same place, same position, across 3 years of footage. She never aged, never moved, but always there, reflected in windows, screens, glass doors. Finally, someone enhanced the image. It was Ellie, not smiling, not scared, just waiting. Because while the fold closed, the role of watcher had to continue. A teenager in Argentina reported something odd. Her mirror smiled. When she didn't, she tested it, raised her left hand. The reflection used the right. But once, it didn't mirror at all. It turned, faced away, and showed her room, as it would be, if no one lived there. Dusty, silent, empty. It wasn't her reflection. It was her absence. In the hills of Northern Ireland, locals discovered a field of buried mirrors. Dozens, all cracked, all deliberately placed. In a spiral, at the center stood a stone, etched with a single name. Clara. Some say the field hums at night. Others say they see people reflected there, but not their own faces, not ghosts, just echoes, trying to be remembered. A boy in Canada heard a whisper through a broken VR headset. He was alone, no app running. The voice was soft, familiar. It said, "Don't let the glass sleep too long." When he looked into the headset's lens, he saw a girl standing by a tree. He described her perfectly. It was Ellie, and behind her, the old Whitaker house, still burning. A man in Istanbul smashed his mirror after seeing someone else's face. Blood poured from the glass. Not his. No cut. The blood formed words on the floor. She kept the flame alive. He fled. Authorities found the mirror intact. No blood. No message. But the man disappeared that night. Left behind only one note. We were never meant to see ourselves so clearly. Ellie became legend. Stories spread. The girl of mirrors. The flamekeeper. Artists painted her. Poets wrote of her eyes. One sculpture stood in Berlin. Glass shards spiraling upward like fire. No name on the plaque. But at dawn, it casts a shadow across the museum wall. A silhouette of a girl, reaching for the sun. And once a year, her hand aligns with the light. In a fogged mirror, a caregiver in a hospice center saw reflection. Not her own, an older woman smiling gently. She blinked, and the name came to her lips. Marion Whitaker. The woman reached through the steam, touched the mirror, and whispered, "You remembered." The fog cleared. The mirror returned to normal. But that night, the caregiver dreamed of Clara and woke up crying. A pirate radio signal interrupted networks worldwide. Just 5 seconds. A voice. "I'm still watching, we are all mirrors now." No origin traceable. No station claimed responsibility. Audio engineers found embedded tones, matching Ellie's earlier recordings. They called it a hoax, but every listener remembered something they hadn't before. Something not from this life. The broadcast only aired once, but the echoes kept growing. In Tokyo, a hotel guest complained her room had no mirror. Staff insisted it did. She pointed at the wall, blank, but in photos taken days later, a mirror was clearly there. Tall, black-framed, and in one image, a girl's face pressed softly against the glass. The guest never returned. She wrote only one sentence in the guest book. "I saw myself, but not now." A child in Norway began drawing the same shape daily. A tall oval, lined with fire. When asked, he said, "She stands there so time doesn't open again." He'd never heard of Ellie or Clara, but one day, he drew a new shape beside the first. A boy, smaller, holding a flame. He smiled. "She won't be alone next time," he said. Memory chose me too. In a cave deep beneath Iceland, a new vibration was recorded. Barely audible. It pulsed, like breathing. Scientists dismissed it. But Ellie would have known. It was the fold, stirring, not reopening. Not yet, just shifting. Because time, like fire, needs air. And someone, somewhere, had whispered her name again. The mirror wasn't watching. It was waiting, as it always had, as it always will. A satellite malfunctioned over the Pacific. For 7 seconds, its lens captured something impossible. A city skyline from the future. Billboards with dates. 2041. And in one reflection, a girl stood before a mirror. She looked like Ellie, but older, tired, And behind her, Mr. Whitaker, still watching, still unchanged. The image was delighted, but a ground engineer saved a frame. Just one, enough, and chilly. A volcanologist saw light under obsidian rock. Not magma. Reflection. She tapped it, and the glass pulsed with warmth. The team extracted a smooth, black plate. No edges, no weight. When she held it up, it reflected a sunrise. Not today's, one from centuries ago. She smiled, not surprised. This fire was never from Earth. She whispered, and the mirror blinked. Linguists in Prague decoded carvings on a broken mirror frame. It was Latin, nor Greek, older. They translated one phrase. Time is not straight, it's remembering. They laughed, called it poetic nonsense, until a professor had a dream. Clara teaching her to write symbols in ash. She woke up, and her wall was covered in that same script. Written from the inside. A radio collector caught whispers. Between static, female voice, softly, sighing, hold the line, hold the fold. He cleaned the file, boosted the signal. The voice belonged to Ellie. Not a recording, a live feed, from nowhere, from somewhen. He never aired it, but the recording vanished on its own. And that night, his bathroom mirror fogged itself, without steam. Twins were born in Morocco. One laughed, one cried. Neither cast shadows in mirrors. Doctors ran tests, all normal. But each time a camera flashed, a third child appeared. Always in the background, always silent. Ellie, the mother claimed she dreamed of a girl. Sighing, they'll help hold it shut. The twins, they never aged in reflections. Not once. In Germany, a physics professor documented a mirror experiment. Light entered. No reflection returned. Instead, the mirror showed a delayed response. A scene from 4 minutes earlier. He repeated it. Same result. Each time, a 4-minute echo. He called it temporal drag. Published the paper. Discredited in weeks. But those who tried it saw the same girl walk past, before she'd ever entered the room. A mirror fragment surfaced in Spain, engraved with a woman's face. When light passed through, her eyes shimmered and blinked. Historians identified her as Clara Moreland. Except the carving predated her life by 2 centuries. Impossible, but not to those who remembered. Clara wasn't born. She was chosen. Each generation, a reflection found a body. And Clara was the first name. Time remembered. A wildlife cam in Siberia captured something strange. No animals, just a frozen pond, with one ripple in the center. Inside it, a reflection, clear, focused, a young girl standing over a burning house. No tracks led to it. No prints remained. But the next day, the pond was gone, melted into perfect glass. And in the middle, a single flame, still burning beneath the surface. A boy in Delhi drew the same room. Every day for a year. Walls of mirror, books made of soot. And at the center, a desk, a man sat there smiling. He looked like Mr. Whitaker. The boy said the room was real. He went there in dreams. And one day, he didn't wake up, but the desk appeared in his bedroom overnight, covered in ash. Memory isn't passive. It chooses, whispers, reveals itself in moments that feel like deja vu. In a mirror you don't remember buying. In dreams that don't belong to you. Ellie knew that. So did Clara. And now, So do we. Because somewhere, just beyond the silver and glass, the fold breathes. Slow, steady, and if you ever feel watched, it's only time. Trying to remember itself. A satellite map updated overnight. New terrain. A valley that didn't exist before. Zooming in showed no trees. No roads. Only one building. An old house, Victorian. At the front gate stood a girl. Still, barefoot, one hand on the gate. When engineers refreshed the feed, the house vanished. But in every re-uploaded image, she remained, waiting, exactly where memory placed her. A sleep study in Sweden found 12 patients with identical dreams. A burning house, a cracked mirror, a woman whispering. Choose silence or echo. Each patient had no prior connection, no shared language, yet all drew the same floor plan. It matched the Whitaker house, room for room, wall for wall, except theirs included one more door, one that no one remembered building. At a London flea market, a woman bought a handheld mirror. Inside the glass, a coin floated. Old, Roman. She pried open the back. Nothing inside. She returned it next day. But the vendor was gone. Only a note. Keep it, the past likes you. Now every mirror she owns reflects her holding that same coin, even when her hands are empty. A town in Oregon installed mirrored bus stops. Eco-friendly, modern, but then people noticed something. Their reflections always arrived 4 seconds late. Mouths moving after speech. Movements lagging. Then one day, a man disappeared mid-reflection. On camera, his body walked away, but the reflection stood still. Then turned, faced the camera, and mouthed, "He went the wrong way." A cartographer traced mirror-related events on a global map. Dates, locations, symptoms. When complete, it formed a perfect spiral, centered on the first fire in 1892. The Whitaker Square. He published the map. It was removed within hours, but downloads spread fast. Now some use it to find weak mirrors, and others to avoid them, because the spiral is still turning. A cybersecurity firm discovered a virus inside their own firewall. Not malicious, just recursive. The code repeated one line endlessly. CLARA. Thousands of times. No origin, no entry point. They wiped the system, rebuilt from zero. But weeks later, one terminal displayed the name again. And the reflection on the screen was not the operator S. It was a woman, in black, veil drawn, in a monastery in Nepal. A mirror burned, without fire, no smoke, no heat, but light, pure golden steady. The monks sat in front of it for hours. One said it revealed only what had been healed. Another said it spoke, but only in memory. Tourists were not allowed near. But from a distance, they saw a child's silhouette inside the light. A girl, guarding silence. A deep-sea drone captured video. Beneath the Mariana Trench. Silence, then a mirror, not broken, not man-made, embedded in rock. The drone's lights triggered reflection. And in it, Ali, no older, no younger, just present. She placed a finger to her lips, then to the mirror. The signal cut. The drone was never found. But on land, all screens flickered once. Exactly at midnight. A child in Poland ran crying from a department store. She said, "Mommy's in the window." but her mother stood right beside her. Security footage showed nothing, but the mirror in the dressing room had a handprint, small, dusty from the inside. They cleaned it. Next day, the print returned and grew, day by day, as if someone was trying to come back, piece by piece. In Paris, a public mirror in a metro station caught an anomaly. A figure stood behind everyone, unmoving, every hour, every day. Same face, same dress. Ali, one night, she blinked. First time in years of footage. And after that, she was gone. Not hidden, erased, but people still feel her. In the pause between reflections. Like a breath, the mirror is waiting to take. In South Korea, a 5-year-old drew fire every day. Not flames, just outlines, always in the shape of a mirror. She never spoke, until one morning. She whispered, "She's gone," but the warmth stayed. No one taught her English. No one knew Ellie. But when her drawings were scanned, they matched the heat signature from the Mariana Trench mirror. Perfectly, hospitals began reporting a new phenomenon. Patients in comas woke with memories that weren't theirs, describing towns they'd never visited. People long dead. One patient recited Clara's diary, word for word, in Latin. He was 10. Doctors called it mnemonic imprinting, but the nurses said it started after mirrors were placed in every ICU room. One cracked, and the memories bled through. A camera crew filming in Prague noticed their footage looped every 72 seconds. Same motion, same words, but no one noticed on set. Only in playback. On the 5th loop, a new figure appeared in the background. Blurry, still, facing away. When they paused at frame 1872, she turned, looked straight at the lens, and mouthed, "This is the last reset." A conservator in Italy restored a mirror. From the 1500s, it began fogging at night, then dripping, not moisture, salt water. She tested it. It matched tears. One night, the mirror wept harder, and an outline appeared. A child curled in grief. Not Ellie, not Clara, someone else, unrecorded, unremembered, but part of the fold, part of the price. The mirror wasn't sad. It was remembering loss. An old wax cylinder was found in a Boston attic, labeled CM 1891. When played, a woman's voice whispered, "Time is not a river. It is a flame." The voice matched no known speaker, but spectral analysis confirmed a second voice underneath, childlike, repeating, "I remember you." Some believe it was Ellie. Others say the wax never recorded anything, only echoed what never left. Data analysts mapped all mirror anomalies over 130 years. A perfect wave, peaks every 33 years, always followed by silence. Until now, the silence didn't come. The frequency continued to rise. One analyst said, "It's not random, it's counting down." They plotted the next spike. 13 days. No one knows what will happen. But across the world, mirrors begin to hum again. Low, unsteady, a woman in Cape Town reported, her reflection moving after her. Not before, not at once, after, as if remembering what she'd done. Then one night, the reflection left frame, walked away. She couldn't see it again. But every reflective surface in her home turned slightly toward her. By morning, not watching, waiting for her to forget something important. At an acting school in Canada, students rehearsed a play. They claimed they'd written, but no one remembered drafting it. It featured Clara Ellie and a mirror that never broke. Each rehearsal ended differently. In one, fire consumed them. In another, the mirror sang. A guest fainted during Act 2. Said she saw herself walk onto the stage from a prop mirror. That wasn't part of the set. Atomic clocks in 5 countries went 1 second off. Just one, but synchronized. All exact. No explanation. The adjustment auto-corrected within the hour. But during that second, security cams around the globe briefly showed the same image. A burning square. A woman standing alone. Veil lifted. Face visible. It was Clara, smiling, because time didn't stutter. It nodded. In a hidden vault beneath New York, a digital archive woke up. No trigger. No command. Its screens lit on their own. Files sorted. Dates realigned. And in the index, a new folder. The Mirror Project active. Inside one file. Audio only. A voice. I never left. I just became the page. Then the sound of breathing. And faintly, glass cracking from inside. In a replica house at a museum in Salem, tourists entered Clara's room. It was decoration. Until one child asked, "Why's the mirror warm?" The staff checked. The antique glass read normal, but melted frost off fingers. Then guests began seeing their younger selves. Briefly, in the reflection, only once, then gone. The museum closed that room. But the mirror remained, and kept warming. A physicist testing light delay noticed a strange feedback loop. In darkness, a mirror recorded her breath. Before she exhaled, she stared too long, and saw herself age. Then rewind. Time wasn't reacting. It was watching, studying her choices. She sealed the lab, burned the footage, but sometimes her shadow moves faster than she does. And always toward the nearest glass. A man walked 800 kilometers across Spain barefoot, carrying only a mirror shard. He called it the last witness. When asked why he walked, he said, "I'm giving it back to the place memory forgot." He vanished before reaching the coast. Only the shard remained, embedded in a rock, facing the ocean. At dawn, it reflects a girl, always alone, always walking inland. Surveillance in a Norwegian concert hall showed a crowd that didn't exist. Rows full of silent people, all facing the stage. But the hall was empty, and in the center seat, a girl, still watching. When they reviewed older footage, she'd been there for years, never aging, never absent. Her name tag on the seat read, Whitakers. It had never been printed. Core samples from Arctic ice revealed patterns in crystal alignment. Too precise, microscopic, yet readable. A message. I remember, do you? No known language, but it matched the mirror frame. From the Whitaker attic. Scientists dismissed it, but one geologist disappeared. Her notebook remained. Dozens of sketches, all mirrors, all open. At the last page, Ali's face, and the word, begin, written backward. At a private screening in Venice, a found footage short made viewers uncomfortable. Not for content, but because their reflections in the theater lagged behind. One woman's reflection never returned. Just stood, frozen, while she left. Later that night, she looked in her bathroom mirror and saw her theater self, still sitting, still watching the screen. The film wasn't recorded. It was remembering. For them, in a school in rural Vermont, a notebook appeared in an empty desk. Inside, drawings, numbers, mirror diagrams. The cover, ELLIE Book 2. The teacher assumed it was a prank, until she flipped to the final page. A map, with the school circled in red. And below it, "You found this too late. The gate is already open." That night, the classroom mirror cracked. A hotel guest reported a terrifying moment. He looked into the mirror, and his reflection smiled first. Not a blink, not a twitch, but a full, knowing grin. Then it vanished, as if embarrassed. Later, he found scratches behind the frame. Carved words. Some mirrors pretend to forget. He never slept in that room again. But sometimes, he still catches his reflection, blinking wrong, at exactly 3:03 a.m. GMT. Mirrors cracked simultaneously. In 17 countries. Security footage captured a girl. In each frame, different ages, same eyes. She stood still, then turned away. The next day, a child was born, veil covering her eyes. Doctors removed it. She blinked, and the hospital lights flickered. The mother named her Ellie. She didn't know why, only that it felt remembered. In the final known case, a blind man touched a mirror and cried. He said he saw everything, not with his eyes, but with time. He described Clara's room, the square on fire, Ellie in the flame, and at the center, a door, unlocked. His last words. She stepped through, not to end it, but to carry it forward. Then the mirror turned cold. A new hospital was built with no mirrors. By design, no glass, no reflection. For 6 months everything was quiet, until patients began reporting dreams. All the same, a girl standing in the hallway, asking to be let in. They never saw her face, only her hand, pressed to invisible glass. The hospital now hangs blackout curtains, but sometimes they still billow when there's no wind. Wind turbines in Iceland recorded a pattern in their blade rotations, a rhythm identical to the breathing pattern from the Mirror Project archive. No one programmed it. No wind matched it. It pulsed through the blades, through the ground, into the data centers. A message embedded in movement. One word, translated from frequency. Remember. Time was still sending signals, even through the air itself. An anonymous message appeared online. A video, static, then a man's face. Pale, eyes like scorched ink. He whispered, "Time burned me, but memory rebuilt me." It was the archivist, presumed gone for years, now speaking from nowhere. He promised a new mirror was coming. One not of glass, but language, something everyone would carry. In thought, in dream, in silence, an old teacup was found in a London attic. Dusty, unremarkable, but under blacklight, a fingerprint glowed, burned into the porcelain. It matched no one living, but AI reconstruction rendered a near-identical match to a photo of Clara Moreland. Impossible. The cup predated her by 40 years, but the fingerprint remained, permanent, as if time had left it there, to prove it doesn't forget. In a chapel in Prague, a children's choir stood frozen, not in fear, in stillness. All faced a single mirror. No song, no movement, just breathing in unison. After 8 minutes, they sang one word, Ellie, then silence. None of them remembered rehearsing, or who chose the song. But the recording was perfect, and in the playback reflection, there was one child more, then stood on stage. A data center in Tokyo caught fire, but only one drive melted. It stored thermal imaging from antique mirrors. When cooled, the drive glowed faintly. Like embers, a technician ran recovery. One file remained, a photo of Ellie, eyes closed, but her reflection in the image was awake, looking out. The flame hadn't destroyed her. It preserved her, like memory, trapped in heat. Somewhere in northern Canada, a hunter found a glass sheet in the forest, clean, frozen into the earth. When he looked through it, he saw his childhood home. But inside, his older self stood, waving. Then the reflection shattered, and snow fell silently. He never found the sheet again, but he never aged afterward. Not once, as if time had forgotten where to place him. Video editors at a news agency found an anomaly. Every exported file had one extra frame, unseen in timeline, undetectable, but always there. A girl, back turned, mirror in hand, one step forward. She was walking out of something or into it. Experts couldn't delete the frame. They stopped trying, because now it shows up in other videos too. Even live broadcasts. Even yours. On the 200th anniversary of Clara's death, a curtain was drawn in a forgotten church. Behind it, a mirror untouched by time. Candles lit themselves, and a shadow passed across the glass. Not Ellie, not Clara, someone older, unknown, veil of fire. They whispered, "We are not reflections. We are memory wearing your face." And the mirror cracked, one final time. From inside, all over the world, stories began to align. Different people, different mirrors, same symbols, same names. Whispers returned. Drawings matched, but no one was afraid. Not anymore, because Ellie had changed something. Not the past, but how we carry it. Now every time you see yourself, pause, blink, and if the reflection waits a moment longer, it's not lag, it's memory, waiting for you to answer. In a lab in Switzerland, scientists tested a new synthetic mirror. Near perfect clarity, but one beam of light refused to bounce. It hit the surface and disappeared. When replayed in slow motion, the reflection formed a face. Familiar, eyes closed, breathing. They ran it again. The face was gone, but now every photo in the room had shifted slightly, like the camera remembered something. The eyes missed. In a rural clinic, patients under anesthesia described the same dream. A girl standing in a library of mirrors. Some saw her as Ellie, others as their own child. One man said, "She was me, but from before I was born." No one could explain it, but EEG patterns aligned. Same waves, same peak, as if the girl wasn't one person, but the memory inside all of them. A sealed envelope was found inside the wall of the Whitaker home. Yellowed, stamped in wax, written in perfect script. To whoever remains. Inside, a single line. You closed it well. Now teach them to leave it closed. It was signed, Clara Moreland. The ink was fresh. Impossible, unless time had always planned to send this back to the one who listened longest. A family reported a strange calm. Their mirrors no longer reflected them. Not broken, not haunted, just blank, no images, no time. When they stood before it, they saw only light and silence, a peace that unnerved them. But their daughter said, "It means we're not being watched anymore." The next day, their house felt warmer. And the mirror, it fogged from the outside. In a refugee camp, a young girl carved into wood. With her fingernail, shapes, faces, a mirror with fire behind it. She had never spoken, but when asked, she whispered, "She left it for us." No one taught her the language, but the carving matched a 19th century symbol. From Clara's journals, time hadn't ended. It had simply changed hands. In an unmarked grave, a body was found buried upright. DNA matched James Whitaker. Impossible. He had never died here. No record of travel. No passport. But his journal was clutched in one hand, burned on the edges. Inside, a drawing of Ellie, smiling, and a note. I held the fold. She closed it. Let me rest now. The grave has never been reopened. A global movement began. One day a year. No mirrors. Shops covered displays. Phones went dark. No reflections. Just for 24 hours. People called it Peace Day. But some knew the truth. They weren't avoiding themselves. They were giving memory space to breathe. And each year, a few said they heard her voice. Just before midnight, Ellie, saying, "Thank you for not looking," in a cave in southern France. Archaeologists uncovered shelves, carved from stone. No books, only panels of glass, set like pages. Each one flickered. Each one showed a moment, not from history, but from dreams. At the far wall, a child's handprint. Beneath it, the word archive, scratched in 40 languages. Clara had once said, "Memory isn't kept. It finds you when the time is right." No new cases, no glitches, no watcher. For the first time in 200 years, mirrors just reflected. Time held its shape, but deep in abandoned basements, in museums, in forgotten ruins, fragments remained. They pulsed quietly, like breath, like something, sleeping, not gone, just waiting to be remembered. Because memory is never erased. It only chooses when to return. And somewhere, in a house no longer standing, on land no longer named, a girl sits, not in time, not in history, just memory. She watches, not to haunt, not to warn, but to keep it closed. The mirror, the fold, the door, because even now, there are people who stare too long. And she is always the first thing they see blank. A nature photographer captured a quiet pond at dawn. Perfect stillness. But when she reviewed the photo, her reflection wasn't hers. Different hair, different age. The woman blinked. Just once. The camera had no mirror lens. No glass. Only memory. The photo spread online. No one could explain it. But someone commented, "She blinked because you weren't supposed to see her." Not yet. At a controlled burn site, firefighters found wood beams with writing inside. Burned into the grain. Perfect cursive. Dozens of names. Dates. Most from the 1800s. All victims of the Whitaker Square fire. At the bottom, one last line. We remember, we remain. The wood was never engraved. But when heated again, the names returned. The fire, it seems, still writes memory into the living world. A child played with a selfie filter. The camera glitched. Her face stayed still, but her reflection smiled, not cute, not playful, knowingly. Her mother uploaded the clip. It went viral, but was taken down within hours. Metadata showed no filter applied, just raw footage, and the file name auto-generated. Read Echo 001. There were no other Echo files. Yet, architects tested a dome design, with curved mirrors on all walls. No corners, just infinite flow. After 5 minutes inside, subjects reported hearing whispers. 10 minutes, they began seeing people behind the mirrors. The project was abandoned, but in the blueprints, someone had scrawled, corners were made to stop memory. This room invited it in. The test room now stands sealed. Still humming, a boy scratched a mirror accidentally. A single line. Later that night, he heard someone whisper, "Thank you." The next day, a second scratch appeared. Then a third, each shaped like words. By week's end, a sentence had formed. Scratches are stories trying to escape. His parents replaced the mirror, but the new one cracked, in the exact same place. In a chemistry lab, a student discovered a glowing residue on a broken antique mirror. Under microscope, it moved, not randomly, but tracing loops, spirals, when exposed to audio recordings of Clara's voice. It pulsed in rhythm. They named it resonant ash, but its behavior matched only one thing: human brainwaves during REM sleep. As if the mirror had been dreaming, long after it shattered. Two strangers, worlds apart, took mirror selfies at the same moment. Different countries, different times, but when cross-posted, the reflections matched. Not similar, identical, same room, same girl between them. When cropped and reversed, the girl's mouth moved. They synced the clips. She whispered, "We're one breath away from remembering." The files deleted themselves, but both phones, no flesh, at the same time each night. An oral historian digitized an old reel-to-reel tape. It was labeled simply, "Clara," static, then humming. A child's voice whispered, "Everything repeats except who listens." Then silence, but the waveform didn't end. It extended, in complete stillness, for 13 minutes. When played backward, a voice cried out, "She's holding the fire, but we forget the room." The tape snapped, right on the word, "fold." In an antique store, a security camera showed motion. In the mirror aisle, but no one was there. The mirrors tilted, as if someone passed. One fell, cracked. The footage paused at 03:33. And in that frame, the mirror reflected a woman's back, walking away, hair in a braid, long black dress. No face, no name, just a soft whisper, caught on audio. Not this time. In an underground bunker, a sealed vault opened for maintenance. Inside, a mirror that had never been powered. Yet its surface glowed faintly. One technician reached out. The glass pulsed, and for just a moment, a girl appeared. Ugly, but older, eyes closed, lips moving, no sound, just light. Then the glow faded. The flame within dimmed. Not gone, just resting, until the next name is spoken. In a mountain town, footprints appeared in the snow. No one nearby, but they led from the forest to a cabin door. Backward, heels first, as if someone walked in reverse. A camera was set up. Nothing on video, except the mirror inside. It showed the prints forming in real time, and a girl watching from the other side with a lantern made of memory. A locksmith found an uncut key stuck inside a mirror frame. It was smooth, no teeth, but when held, he heard whispers, different voices, different languages, all saying one word. Hold. He melted it down. But the whisper continued. Now from inside his tools. He never made keys again. He said the real locks were never on doors, only on what we choose to forget. A painting from 1835 was X-rayed for restoration. Underneath the visible image, a girl, not part of the original, perfectly detailed, holding a broken mirror. She hadn't aged with the canvas, and when revealed, her eyes glowed faintly under UV light. The conservator wept. She said she'd dreamt of that girl her entire childhood, but never remembered. Until now, a sound engineer discovered a subsonic hum, present in global data, ubiquitous, low, undetectable to most, but children under 7 drew spirals while listening. Identical ones. One child wrote, "This is where memory waits." Another, "It hums when no one looks." The sound was removed from public systems, but in dead air, you can still feel it. If you sit still long enough, a house was built with mirrored exits. Purely aesthetic. But guests reported confusion. They saw doors, but never reached them. Reflections shifted slightly. Each step forward, one woman ran in circles. For hours later, she said, there were exits, only reminders of where I already was. The builder removed all mirrors, but their blueprints still show 7 doors, even though the house only has 6. A voice assistant picked up a phantom command. At 3:11 a.m., it activated, recorded itself saying, "Echo listening Clara memory match." Then silent. The user never said anything. No one in the room. But in the device history, a note appeared. She is still searching. Now across the world, smart mirrors glitch. For 1 second each week. Always at the same time. Always silent. A group camping in Alaska saw a girl by their fire. She didn't speak, didn't move, just sat beside the flame. That didn't reflect in anyone's eyes. When they blinked, she vanished, but their phone videos showed her clearly. And in one frame, behind her, a tall mirror, half buried in snow. The same frame that once stood in the Whitaker garage. In a courtroom, a witness described a crime before it happened, not speculation, detail by detail. She said she'd sign it. In the hallway mirror at home, the judge dismissed her. But 3 days later, it happened exactly as she said. She wasn't psychic. She was remembering. From a loop, no one else survived. Her last statement, the mirror doesn't reflect the past. It rehearses it. Somewhere, a mirror sits in a sealed vault, watched by no one. And still, it breathes, not like lungs, like thought, faint pulses, like remembering how to remember. Scientists monitor it, But the data stopped changing. Flatline, zero flux. Except one technician heard it hum. A lullaby from her childhood. One she'd never told anyone. As if time itself had chosen to say goodbye. Gently, in a burned library. One book survived. Half-jarred, unreadable. But a single page was folded down. Not marked, not bookmarked. Folded, and on it, a child's handwriting. This is where the story ends. So no one else falls in. No title, no author, but the page smelled of smoke. And mirrors, and memory, held too long. Then finally, let go. A sculptor built a mirror with no border. Just glass, floating in air. Visitors stepped close, but saw no frame, no limit, only space behind them. Shifting, a child touched it and said, "It feels like someone's looking out." The artist never spoke of its origin. But when dismantled, the glass didn't break. It simply vanished and left behind a reflection, still standing in midair. Linguists discovered a recurring set of symbols. In unrelated cultures, always scratched into reflective surfaces. They weren't letters. They were questions. One scholar whispered, "They're asking who's watching whom." No translation was offered. But when the shapes were mirrored, the arrangement formed a map of every known mirror anomaly. And in the center, drawn smallest of all, was a flame, with a girl standing beside it. An audio technician filtered ancient room tones from historical sites. Each had a unique sound, until one sample returned pure silence. Not emptiness, structured quiet, as if something once lived there, and turned itself off. He played it at high volume, heard breath, then a single word. Stay, not threat, not command, just kindness, from something that no longer wanted to be opened again. Under the foundation of the old Whitaker home, a worker found a handprint, pressed into stone, not carved, pressed with pressure, heat, and time, smaller than an adult's, lined with ash. Inside the palm, a faint spiral etched in dust. No one could explain it, but the team covered it again, left it undisturbed, because some things aren't meant to be studied, just respected. A small building opened in Lisbon, with no name, no signs, just mirrors, empty frames. Visitors entered, saw themselves for a moment, then saw no one, no reflection, just a blank soft glow. A guide whispered, "This is what memory becomes when it's forgiven." No one stays long, but everyone leaves different. Lighter, and just outside, there's always a child's footprint. In the morning dust, for the first time, a mirror cracked, and no one heard it. No scream, no whisper, only silence. It broke clean, edge to edge, and the glass turned gray. Inside it, nothing moved, not even time. People gathered, watched, then walked away, because the mirror had finally given back what it took: stillness, not emptiness, but rest. A statue was placed in the center of the old town square, unlabeled, unveiled quietly. A woman in black, one hand extended, not warning, inviting. Children leave flowers at her feet. No one teaches them to. They just know. Some say her name aloud. Others whisper it. And at night, if you pass by, you might hear her hum the lullaby only memory still sings. Doctors examined a child's birthmark that pulsed faintly with heat. It matched the old fold symbol. Not ink, not burn, something older. The child said. She gave it to me, so I wouldn't forget. When asked who, she pointed at a mirror, then back at herself. Me, from before. The mark faded over years. But sometimes, in sunlight, it still glowed, like cooled embers. In classrooms, children draw spirals without knowing why. In stories, the girl with the mirror appears again. She isn't feared. She isn't warned against. She's remembered. A myth, they say, but some children dream of her voice and wake up smiling, not afraid, because when the fold closed, it didn't seal away horror. It became story, and stories don't disappear. They wait. It still exists, somewhere, maybe in a shop, maybe under ash, maybe behind your wall. The mirror that doesn't reflect, but remembers. And if you find it, don't be afraid. Step close, look gently, and ask nothing, because the mirror doesn't owe you answers. Only memory, only glimpses of what made us. And maybe, if you're quiet long enough, it will show you the moment you forgot. In a silent cabin, an old man looked into the only mirror he owned. It didn't show his face. It showed a younger version, but not of him, of someone he had once loved. He didn't speak, didn't move, only watched, and when he exhaled, the mirror fogged. Just once, he smiled, because some memories don't need to be explained. They just need to be met. An academic published a theory. The fold cannot reopen, because it was never a place, only a question. He was mocked, discredited, but those who read his work felt something, like a breath on the back of the mind, like being watched by someone who already forgave you. He left one final note. The fold ends when we remember. Without looking back, a violinist played alone, in a gallery of antique mirrors. The sound echoed wrong. Light, bent, but beautiful. He kept playing, and in the mirrors, he saw hands, others, playing with him. No bodies, just memory. And when the final note held, the room exhaled, not with applause, but with stillness. A harmony between now and all the moments we never said out loud. A collector opened a mirror frame, found sealed in an old chest. No glass, only ash, fine, soft, as if it had burned from the inside. When he touched it, his fingers trembled, then steadied. The room grew warmer, lighter, as if someone had sighed. The collector never sold it. He placed it on his mantle, empty, and each evening thanked it for remembering something. He had not. One photograph from 1892. A fire brigade. Smoke in the air. In the background, a girl on the stairs, half shadowed. She's looking directly at the lens. Hand on the railing. No records list her name, but every time someone scans the photo, her eyes shift slightly. Only once, only for them, as if to say, you're not too late, you're just on time. In a public restroom, mirrors stopped reflecting for 7 minutes. Just black, no light, no image, and then, a single flicker, a girl walking away. Not into darkness, into light. When the mirrors returned, everyone looked older. Not physically, just remembered, like they'd seen themselves. From far ahead, the watcher had left. Her job was done. Now memory was ours to carry. In a subterranean server farm, one database quietly shut down. No error, No warning. Just a final log entry. Ellie last anchor released. Technicians tried rebooting, but all data was blank. Not deleted. Just white. As if nothing ever needed storing again. Memory had moved out of machines and back into people, where it always belonged. The old Whitaker land was turned into a park. Benches, grass, trees, and one plaque. Here stood a house where memory waited. No mention of mirrors. No names. No fire. Visitors say it feels quiet. Too quiet. Like something is holding its breath. But no footsteps. No whispers. And for the first time in centuries, no one knocks. From the other side, the last known shard was sealed in resin, buried beneath a tree, planted by a child who didn't know why. It glows sometime, when the wind shifts, soft, not calling, just present. Birds avoid it. Children play nearby. And every spring, flowers bloom around it. In perfect spiral, the mirror doesn't wake. It doesn't watch. It simply sleeps, cradling the weight of everything it once held. One day, just once, the world forgot to look. No mirrors, no glass, no memory of reflection. Just eyes meeting eyes, voices speaking truth. And for a moment, every person alive felt a pulse behind their ribs. Not fear, not warning, recognition, as if something inside said, "Now you understand." And the world exhaled, without echo. An old woman passed in her sleep. Peaceful, untroubled. Her name was Clara. But her final breath formed that word. One nurse heard it, and dreamed that night of fire, folds, and a girl smiling. When she woke, her mirror had fogged, just briefly, and on the glass, a single word had appeared. Closed. No hand wrote it. No one saw it vanish. But it was enough. She's not a ghost, not a curse, not a girl lost to time. She's a story, told quietly, drawn in chalk, whispered through windows, passed from child to child. Without fear, she walks where memory lives, where silence is respected. She holds no anger, only a torch, and when she's seen again, she won't blink. She'll smile, because someone finally remembered, without needing proof. This is how it ends. Not with fire, not with fear, but with a pause, a mirror that shows nothing but your own calm face. No echoes, no watchers, just you, holding the quiet. Because memory isn't a burden. It's a promise. In the past, doesn't want to return. It just wants to rest in someone who remembers it kindly. So go ahead, blink,